Good morning and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Bintang Darmawan. Uh, Today I will like to present my research methodology, and the topic will be the effect of emotional advertising in YouTube towards Z generation's buying decision in Indonesia. So chapter 1, introduction. Object of review. There's two object of review in my research. There's Generation Z and advertising with emotion. Namely, Generation Z, which is the most intensive toward digitalization with internet consumption on an index of 112, which ranks first before Generation X and Y. The second, the habits of and the attitude to Generation Z, which is very consumptive of the internet. Many businesses are taking the advantage of the digital marketing to Generation Z. Also, many digital platforms are used to attract Z generation interest in product sales. And the last one for Generation Z is many platforms and social media are used to attract attention to Generation Z in product sales, especially the YouTube platform, into a large market because the number of YouTube users is 19.3 million. The advertising with the emotion, advertising methods and strategies vary widely first to attract a lot of interest to Generation Z. One of the advertising strategies is emotional advertising that use consumer emotion to attract buying decision about product. The second is in YouTube advertising, consumer emotions can be relied on by advertising scenarios with predetermined duration by the company in order to attract empathy and sympathy in product buying decision. So here's our research background. As you can see, there's a data. So from the data above, it can be said that e-commerce companies prefer to advertise the product on social media compared to YouTube ads and still based on statistics 2021. Second is the projection on YouTube's user in Indonesia will reach 130.2 million users, and from 2021 data, YouTube user in Indonesia has reached 83.5 million. Also in Shopee bookkeeping as an object of income, there was increase of 187.7% compared to last year and still based on statistic 2021. As you can see, there is a consumption in Generation Z, judging by the uh, data. And the third is where the emotional attractiveness in advertising strategies by utilizing positive and negative emotion to encourage consumer buying interest, especially Generation Z can make companies increase seeing advertising power on YouTube emotional advertising to Generation Z toward buying decision. So here's the problem formulation. First is, does emotional advertising on YouTube affect buying decision for Generation Z in Indonesia? How does emotional advertising on YouTube affect buying decision for Generation Z in Indonesia? Is there no effect of emotional advertising on YouTube affecting purchasing decision for Generation Z in Indonesia? Research objective to determine the emotional effect of advertising on decision toward Generation Z in Indonesia. Find out how effective emotional advertising in influencing purchasing decisions so that in the future business can apply in advertising on YouTube, especially to create Z Indonesia. So the benefit of the research can create awareness of two generations toward emotional advertising to be strategic recommendation in doing emotional advertising to Generation Z. Knowing emotional motivation Generation Z in buying decision. Last ones can be a reference for further research. So here are systematic of mini thesis writing for the chapter 1 introduction. We'll be describing the general description of the research object, the background of the research, the formulation of the problem, the objective benefit of the research, and systematic of writing final project. Chapter 2 literature review describe the theories that discuss up to specific theory accompanied by previous research, followed by research framework, and ending with a hypothesis. Chapter 3 research methodology outline the approaches and techniques used to collect and analyze findings that can answer the research problem, operationalization of population and sample variables, data collection, reliability testing, validity testing, and technical analysis of data. So here's our chapter 2 literature review. The relevant theories in my research, there will be a consumer behavior, emotional appeals, Generation Z, and purchasing decision. Consumer behavior says Schiffman and Carnot 2008 and 6 state that the study of consumer behavior is study of how an individual makes decision to allocate available resource, time, money, effort, and energy. Consumer have diversity and interesting for various study because it includes all individual of all ages, cultural backgrounds, education, and other socioeconomic conditions. So the emotional appeals from Kotler 2004 stated that emotional attractiveness in advertising is attempt to positive. There's humor, love, pride, and fun, or negative fear, feeling, and shame. Emotion in advertising that will motivate buying behavior. Generation Z from Helen Shaw B. 2012, page 35. The meaning of the term Z generation, Z or what is later known as digital generation, is young generation that grows and develop with a great dependency on digital technology. Purchasing decision, according to Schiffman, Kanuk 2008, page 4037, a purchase decision is person decision where he choose one of several alternative options. Purchasing decision are action taken by consumer in choosing to buy, not to buy a product based on various factors that influence consumer in making purchasing of product services. So here's our previous research. So here's our theoretical framework. So emotional advertising is a type of advertising that uses emotional attraction to influence emotional and psychological to increase purchase interest. Emotional advertising appeal itself is an attempt at positive, as I said, humor, love, pride, and fun, or negative fear, feeling, and shame emotion in the advertising that will motivate buying behavior. According to Morrison, 2010, page 37, a buying decision is a person's decision where he chooses one of several alternative options. Purchasing decision are action taken by consumer in choosing or not to buy a product based on various factors that influence consumer in making a purchase of product or services. Usually, consumer will consider the quality, price, and acceptance of the product in the eyes of the community. Schiffman and Kanuk, 2008, page 43, 437. Purchasing decision focus on Generation Z, which has intense online activity, become objects for whiching the response is knowing, especially with the use of YouTube as one of the platform used. So here's my hypothesis. In this research, there is H0, which there is no influence of emotional advertising on YouTube, main point. And the H1, there is an influence of emotional advertising on YouTube. And the Y is the decision to buy Generation Z. Chapter 3, research methodology. So this research characteristic will be using quantitative, and based on purpose, it will be descriptive type. Based on method will be quantitative type. Based on strategy will be survey type. Based on unit analysis is individual type. Based on research background is non-conservative type. Based on implementation time is cross-sectional. So here's are the operational variable. So variable X is the influence of emotional ads on YouTube, which the influence of the attractiveness of emotional advertisement on YouTube, where the advertisement itself is an attempt to bring our positive and negative or negative emotion in advertisement that will motivate by behavior, Kotler 2004. And here's our sub variable will be emotional appeals. So this attractiveness is determined based on psychological condition or feelings that are well demonstrated by oneself and also to things that are socially oriented personal feeling conditions such as comfort, security, fear, ambition, and so on. So here's are the indicator. There's positive emotion, humor, love, pride, and fun. Scale will be ordinal, and the number item will be 1, 2, and 3. The second indicator will be negative emotion, fear, feeling, and shame. Ordinal scale, and number item will be 4, 5, 6. So here's the Y, a variable which will be buying decision of Generation Z in Indonesia. So the purchase decision is a decision to Generation Z, where the individual choose one of the several alternative choices. Purchasing decisions are actions taken by Generation Z in choosing to buy or not buy the product based on various factors that influence consumer in making purchase of a product or services. So here is some variable will be purchase decision structure. So there are seven components of purchase decision structure, namely one decision about product types, about the shapes, about the brands, about the seller, about the products, and about the time of purchasing, and the last one about the method of payment. Says Kotler and Armstrong 2000, page 109. So the indicator will be decision about product types will be scale ordinal, number item 7, decision about product shapes, still ordinal, page 8, number item 8, decision about brands, ordinal 9, decision about the seller, ordinal 10, decision about the number of products, ordinal 11, decision about the time of purchasing, ordinal 12, decision about the method of payment, ordinal 13. So here's our the research stage. First will be research studies, and there will include observation of research phenomena, literature research, and then moving on to problem formulation, and including making problem research questionnaire. Then collecting and processing data will be online survey, data analysis, and conclusion. So here's our population sample. This research population will be Generation Z in Indonesia with an intensive level of use of YouTube. Sample will be census sampling method. Data collection and data sources. Data collection will be online survey and data sources will be primary data. Validity and reliability tests. Validity tests. So in this research, we'll use the level of significance can be found by looking at the calculated R at the degrees of freedom equal n minus 2 for alpha equal 0.05 if R counted more than R table. The indicator can be said to be valid and can be used as a measurement in instrument. Says Silalahi, 2015, page 477. So in reliability test in this research is using the alpha Cronbach technique, the coefficient used it at least 0.7, where if 0.7 the instrument used is feasibly to use, but if is less than 0.6, then the research instrument is not suitable to be used as an instrument. So here's our data analysis technique. We'll be using statistical descriptive data analysis. So first one is distributing response on based gender. So the category are male, female, and the total. The frequency of a male in Generation Z in Indonesia are to be calculated 38 billion point 166,040, and the percentage will be 38.16%. For the female, 37 billion point 311 million 76. The percentage will be 37.31%. So the total of for all male and female, all we can say, Generation Z in Indonesia are 75.477.106, and percentage 75.47%. This data will are collected from the census 2020. So the secondary distribution response based on age. So the category there will be 10 to 5, 16 to 23. The frequency to 10 to 15 will be 3 million 190 80 16. So the percentage will be 30.90%. For the age 16 to 23 will be 45 billion 286 million 300. Percentage will be 45.28%. So the total are 75 billion 40 million 77 116, and will a percentage as 75.47%. So data analysis technique will be using classic assumption test. So there is the data normality test, which A, if P less than 0.05, then the data distribution is not normal. And B, if P more than 0.05, then the data distribution is normal. And second is multicollinearity test. So to detect the symptoms of multicollinearity, it is necessary to test the variant inflation factor, and the tolerance value provide that the tolerance value of N or VIV of 10 indicates multicollinearity. So there are also heteroscedasticity tests, which if the significant value more than 0.05, then there is no heteroscedasticity. B, if the significant value less than 0.05, so there then it contains the heteroscedasticity. So the fourth one is autocorrelation test. If the number D until W below -2, then there is positive autocorrelation. But if there's between the -2 until +2, then there is no autocorrelation. But which there is above +2, then there is negative autocorrelation. Simpler regression analysis, which the formulation will be y equal a plus bx for the information. Y is variable dependent, x variable independent, and a constant value if of y if x equals to 0. B, regression coefficient, which positive or negative effect. Correlation coefficient test. So here's are the formulation. According to Sugiono, 2012, page 192, the criteria of determining the correlation are the table below. So here's are the coefficient of determining analysis, as you can see the formulation too. Also from according to Sugiono, 2012, uh, page 192, the criteria of determining determination are contained in the table below. So there's all my presentation. Thank you and see you next time.